Summertime is living is easy. This is going to be a lot of fun. This week's DC Sports Huddle, we're sponsored by MGM National Harbor for the latest in Washington sports. Visit MGM National Harbor, experience a sports fan paradise. And I know we all do it. We all do it as we're especially in the summertime. We start thinking about all those sports cliches. I don't like, a lot of folks don't like sports cliches or trophies, best and worst trophies. So we've got some topics we're going to have some fun with today, but I want to start the proceedings by defending a sports cliche. Everyone hates take it one game at a time. Let me tell you something. Living through an NBA campaign, as I do, broadcasting the Wizards, I understand where these poor guys are coming from. I mean, they're just trying to get through that game. That's it. They're not looking globally. They can't. This one game at a time business is not unlike if you asked your boss about 6 things and he would say, well, let me just take one issue at a time. So I'm going to defend one day at a time. Although I know if I played an athlete saying I'm going to take it one game at a time, I get fired after a pretty good run at WTOP. But I'm going to use this venue to defend that sports cliche. So I've got that off my chest. Ben Raby, as always, it's good to see you, along with George Wallace, Dave Preston, and Rob Woodfork. I think I forgot to give the starting lineup. I was so excited to get into this topic. Ben, what is burning on your mind? Clearly,
you were playing one day at a time, Dave. That's fine. You were just focusing on that moment.
Yeah.
See, I didn't get ahead of myself.
One game at a time in the NBA. I will say I'd like a word with the load management folks when it comes to the one game at a time.
Well, and let me tell you something. As I say to Wes Unseld Jr. many a times, can you imagine if you had said to your dad, Wes Unseld Sr., anything about load management? You'd have to duck real quick because, and there's words he would probably have uttered, and he didn't utter bad words, but he might have had a few under his breath that had us a little squeamish. Ben.
Here's what we got. I don't know if it's a cliche, but it's a term. Hear it all the time around the NFL and football season. All right. You have a roster, you have a team, you have a lineup. Apparently we have buildings. Yes, every team has headquarters, but I'm tired of hearing the culture in the building. He's going to be an asset in the building. Things are changing in the building. Every single time we hear the term building, just say team, just say roster. It'll replace it just fine. They're not drafting Art Vandelay. It's not an architect here. It's a sports team. Call it a team.
But don't hockey. Don't they call the arenas buildings where they play?
Yes, but when they're talking about roster construction, it's a roster.
It's an organization.
It's a lineup.
Organization.
It's an organization, if you prefer.
And you're in the dressing room where you put the sweater on.
But all this about buildings and rooms, you got your wide receiver room, your quarterback room. No, you got your wide receivers.
Well,
you got your wide receiver depth charts.
All right. Well, Ben's got a lot on his mind, so we'll let him simmer. Go to George. But we got to bring back Barn. We got to bring back Barn. They're not using Barn enough in hockey. But George, you're next. And by the way, Ben, you brought your A game.
First of all, why is Ben yelling at us?
Okay. No, because, hey, that's a strong leadoff hitter right there.
Yeah.
All right. You know what?
We weren't looking for a bunt single. We needed somebody to come strong out of the box.
We're looking for a double.
How's that like for a cliche?
All right. You got to play a full 40 minutes. You got to play a full 60 minutes. You got to play a full 9 innings. No kidding. You got to play a full. I can't. And look, I coach a little bit, so I find myself saying it. You have to play from whistle to whistle. You got to play from the beginning. Of course, you got to play the whole time. That drives, and that's another one of those things we play on our air. We will get in trouble with. That's the one it drives me crazy each time. You got to play.
First of all, don't undersell yourself. Don't be talking about I coach a little bit. Okay, George Wallace. That's his air name. His name is George Wooten. Okay.
Yeah. Well,
take a shot. You might just make it.
But yes, you got to play the full 40 minutes. You got to play the full game. I know you do. We all know you do. You got to do it. That one drives me crazy. That's what I'm going with right now.
All right. Well, that's good advice, because by morning drive, usually by 8 and 9 o'clock in the morning, I'm coasting. So I should play the full morning drive. All right.
You got to play to the whistle. You got to play to your last update.
I know. Yeah. That's held me back. Dave Preston.
One is at the end of the day, when the athlete or coach sneaks that in there at the end of the day, but everyone uses that. Actors, actresses, politicians, what have you. One thing that gets me as far as a sports cliche is we have to go out and play Maryland basketball. Or, what's the key to tonight's game? well, we got to go out there and play Georgetown basketball. And
We
it's
have to execute, Dave.
You guys are 0-18 in the Big East. Is that Georgetown basketball? You know,
You sure you want to
and
play Georgetown basketball?
every team has their own thing, and it's just okay. I get it that you're going to. Are you going to play Virginia basketball? You know, if you're Maryland, no, of course you're not. It's amusing, and instead of actual content, I get what they're saying sometimes, but it does us no use.
But also,
to execute. At the end of the day, though, it is what it is.
Though.
Yeah.
You have to have an established brand, though.
Right.
So, like when when Maryland, when Brenda Freeze says that means something.
Right.
Okay. If Turgeon says it, I don't know if I buy that.
Oh yeah.
Dave's a New England guy. The Patriot way, that means
Patriot.
something when you're in the Super Bowl every other year, right?
Right.
But if you say like we're gonna play, what the Washington football team used to be called, like we're saying that, like that doesn't hold the same water in 2003 that it did in 1987, 1991.
There's an identity.
There was
an identity for that. That group
Correct.
had an identity.
Correct.
You're right.
Well, I just
And even
remember
Baltimore has the whole thing, play like a Raven. They have that in
Right.
their building. Sorry, Ben.
No,
they have
don't
that. But they
They
have
have
it
it
in
on
their
their
actual
team.
It's in their actual building, though. They have it in their stadium. Like that's an established brand that
And when they have it at most Baltimore convenience stores as well, play like a Raven. So it's not just in the. Now, first of all, Ben gets another award for bringing up execute, which brings us to the greatest line in sports ever. And you know where I'm going with this.
agreed.
Tom McKay of the Buccaneers, when asked about his team's execution, he said, "I think it's a good idea." So he knew how to do a post-game press conference.
So good.
All right, all
I'm
right,
in favor of it.
all right, Ben. While we still have you in the building, what else? What else?
We actually are in a physical building. Yes, that applies.
Right. Well, okay. I guess that does apply now that I'm confused. But talk to your hockey folks. I want to hear more Barnes. I don't hear enough Barnes when we go to their barn.
And
That's-
Barn is
that's
great.
fading away. That's,
I love
like the barn.
I do. I love it.
The
I mean,
dressing
You know why?
room-
Because
the
a
dressing
barn-
room. I'm not a big fan of the dressing room thing, but the barn,
Oh.
it's different. It's fine, but the barn I love.
Because a barn that describes an old school run down. You see them more so now, maybe in the lower tier leagues, but in the NHL, they're all cookie cutter, all fancy, top of the line. They're all the same arenas, right? A
Right.
barn has character.
All right.
Right.
I think Ben just got fired from
There's
Capital.
definitely
He called
character.
Capital One Arena.
Stink a little
Cookie.
bit too.
All right.
Yeah.
So, but are there any? I said I like one game at a time because I think it makes sense.
Here's
Are they-
here's one thing. Actually, to piggyback off that, because what does Dave Martinez say every day? He's like, "Let's
Yes.
go 1-0 every day."
Yeah.
And we're-
How's that
and we're-
working out?
That's cute and
Well-
funny when you're going to the World Series and you're making a run or whatever. When you're 6-29 in your division, that's I don't know that I'm buying into the go 1-0
Well,
every
no,
day.
Yeah,
But-
but to Dave's point though, like there's in such a focus, such a mindset.
Oh,
You
yeah.
have to just play what is that
Right.
day in front of you. Now, do you think and Dave, you can answer, do NBA players probably not? I don't know. Do they, when they get the schedule, they look and say, "Oh, when are we going to LA?" Do these guys do that, or are they just so focused on
No, they're well. I mean, LA is probably a bad
LA maybe.
example.
I'm sorry, LA may be different. Right. When are we going to Minnesota and Chicago in the middle of the winter?
Ooh.
Because I got to admit, when the schedule comes out, I'm
Yeah.
going to look at how many off days we get in LA. So that's a bad example. But
All right, my fault.
by the
Or
way,
Miami. Yeah.
when the schedule comes out, I don't look for the Detroit. I just, grin
Yeah.
and bear it when it comes up. But what that is, Grant Long once was a basketball player, NBA player who I wish I saved this cut. This was back in the days. This is a history lesson for all watching and listening. We had things called cartridges, and I saved it for a lot of years. And then our building, because they threw out a bunch of stuff, but it was Grant Long talking about the one night stands and the way they're lucky to know what city they're in, much less, it becomes, and this is true with NHL and I think a lesser extent to baseball, because you get to a city and you're at least there for 3 or 4 days, but you get in this rhythm where you're following this itinerary that's you know what time the bus is, and you just show up for that, and you hopefully recognize the arena you're playing in.
No, and just to be clear, I'm not taking umbrage with that approach. I'm not taking umbrage with, but you're saying the quiet part out loud. Like, we know
Right.
you have to take it one day at a time. We
Okay.
know that. But it's like when you say it in press conferences, Nobody's looking for that. Like
No,
you're
no.
just hitting your crutch phrases in order to get through what you're being forced to do,
Right.
by
And-
league rule.
And sadly, I've covered enough seasons that you don't want to cover one game at a time. You just as soon skip through
Right,
5 or
right,
10 of them.
right.
They're like, hey, we're at the end of the season. How'd that happen?
Hey, what about when they guys you get up there and say it was a team win? You waiting for someone to say, like, I did it all by myself. This was
Yeah.
not a
Yes.
team win.
Yeah.
That's why I want Cam Newton, guys, because he's going to get up there. He's going to give us something great.
That's true.
But
Well,
mine is real quick. The National Football League. How come guys who cover the league, the like the analysts on ESPN and all these other channels, they always say the entire league name in its entirety? If y'all address me by my entire government name, I think I'm in trouble. So
Right.
why are we doing that? Just say the NFL. Why does it have to be the National Football? It's pretentious. It's unnecessary. And I don't think I've ever seen Charles Barkley say the National Basketball Association.
Right.
They
I don't
say
think
the
I've ever seen that.
association, which is
Yeah,
hipper.
I'm right.
Yeah.
But that's still
It's
a
hipper.
means of shortening what is the entire name. So that's always been my problem.
Well,
It's
wait a
just
minute.
National
You answered
Football
your
League.
Yeah.
you answered your own argument, Rob. You
Right.
said that sounds pretentious.
Yeah. I
The
mean,
NFL?
and that is the NFL. You're right.
Two things that creep in along those lines, Rob, to your point, you often hear, and this is at all levels, where they don't refer to it as a team. It's the football team.
Right.
Now, we know that we're
Like, what else
interviewing the
y'all playing?
football
Handball?
coach. Yeah, and he's talking about our next opponent. They're a good football team. And it's like,
Yeah.
all right, that's good because you play football as well. And it's
Right.
one of those, I don't know where we're going with this. If you were to say, yeah, they're kind of a good soccer team, you're like, okay, that's a different feel. Or a good
Although
hockey
sometimes
team.
I wonder how the 1989 Pistons would have gone up against some football teams if y'all.
They would have
remember
won.
how they used to play.
You know what? The 1989 Pistons would have finished second in the NFC Central, right behind the Bears. Bears were still good from the monsters of the Midway.
Yeah. Bill Lambier thought he was drafted by the USFL. He had no
Yeah.
idea he was
Yeah.
playing for
They
the
did.
Pistons. So that was
Related NBA draft. How many athletes get picked? A lot of athletes.
No.
Good
Wingspan.
athletes.
Love me the
He's
wingspan.
athletic.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
He's a great athlete.
Good athleticism is another way to figure out. We're not exactly sure what he does, but you know what? He's in good shape. And so we think he could help us. So, and fortunately, I don't think any of us on this panel have been accused of good athleticism. All right. Any other
I was,
cliches?
but it was a long time ago.
Take what the defense gives you. We just took what the
Oh, yeah,
defense
true.
gave us. We
Right.
just took what the pitcher gave us. We just took what the hitters gave us this afternoon. Athletics is competitive enough. You don't have that many passive people, men and women saying, oh yeah, I whatever they wanted me to do, whatever they let me do, I did. And that's it. They obviously don't want to tell you, hey, you know what? This guard had a bad back pedal and we really wanted to screw him up by throwing 6 different blitzes at him. Or this guy can't hit the sinking curveball, so I gave it to him every single at bat. So they kind of have to hide things that way, but just, take what the defense gives you or take whatever gives you. You can take that somewhere else, athletes.
All
and
right,
coaches.
okay.
Dave, real quick. I'll
No,
bring
that's
it
the
full
harshest
circle.
thing I've ever heard Dave Preston say.
Yikes.
I'll bring it full circle, Dave. You started off the top. You said you're okay with the one game at a time. You like that one. Best 2 words in sports. I'm going to push it to game 7. That one I could live with. Best 2 words in sports, game 7. That's a good one. That's not wrong. Come on.
That's a
I
good
do
one.
enjoy Game 7.
A
What
little,
about staving off elimination?
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
Well, I asked
I'm
the
guilty
question
of
a
that
few
one.
weeks ago in the English language. Do we stave off anything as much as
Right.
sports teams stave
No,
off
no.
elimination?
Yo,
we staved off British domination in the War of 1812. I think
Right.
that's
I save off marriage. So yes.
well, and I keep staving off vacation by doing DC Sports Huddle. And by
Staving
the
off
way,
this bagel at this time.
this
We're staving off elimination, all of us, every day, one day at a
great
time.
little
So want to
inside.
know every day.
A little insight for our loyal viewers and listeners, the DC Sports Huddle. A bit ironic here because I champion that we should take it one game at a time on a day when we're actually doing 2 DC Sports Huddles. So that I just threw my whole argument out there. All right, let's talk about best trophies. We're going to talk about trophies and success. And
Hey, man, I changed my shirt for nothing.
well, no, and so I know it's already August on the DC Sports Huddle. We just don't realize it.
Yeah.
Now that Ben Raby's here, this is something I believe. This is a true story. I woke up at 3 a.m. wondering what happened to World Team Tennis, because I don't think there's a season coming, because we had all those Washington Castles titles in our town, and World Team Tennis goes back to the 70s when disco was. So what's Ben? Do you have any inside scoop? World Team Tennis, where is it?
They were playing on a roof. They
A
were
dynasty were the
Yeah.
Castles. Yeah.
Yes.
No, they've since the pandemic, they've had it in the fall, but not in individual cities. Kind of the USFL approach. They've parachuted into one city, one locale. I think they did it in San Diego last fall, and the Castles took a leave of absence, I believe, last year. But they did it. They gathered their teams, the Orlando Breakers and all the others. They gathered in one
Okay.
locale.
All right. So answer is you really don't know if we're gonna have a World Team Tennis season. That's good. All right.
What are we supposed to do on the roof at Union
Are
Market?
the,
No, I know,
are the
exactly.
Springfield Lasers still in the league? That's the question.
Well,
Is it
and
the
then
Lasers?
which Springfield is it? Because what
I think
wasn't
it's
that
Springfield,
The
Missouri.
one from The Simpsons.
Yeah.
Right.
Flagship
Right next-
franchise.
Right next to Branson, Missouri, not to be confused with Bronson.
Yeah, no. By the way, Charles Bronson probably has a theater there, but doesn't matter.
Ugh.
All right, trophies. What are we talking about here, Rob?
Oh boy, let's see trophies. I mean, my early answer would have to be the World Series trophy, just because we all got a picture with it when the Nationals brought it by the station in the fall of 2019. But
you didn't earn it. You didn't win it.
I did earn it. I talked about them, didn't I?
That's true.
Yeah. So I'm going to say the NFL, because it's, and look, and shout out to the NBA for basically redoing their trophy and, making it, look a little better. They did a lot over the course of the last season to sort of repackage some of the postseason awards, and they revamped the trophy and all of that. So shout out to them for that. But, that NFL trophy with the football on top, I'm always partial to that.
Right. It's not too pretentious. All right, Dave
I
Preston.
mean, everything
Yeah.
about that sport is pretentious, but I think the trophy is pretty understated comparatively
Right.
speaking.
My favorite trophy, I think the trophy that stands the test of time, the trophy that all other trophies should be measured against in trophiness, if that's a word, the Stanley Cup. Names are engraved, and you feel the history of the sport in this trophy. You feel, and Ben has had a chance to carry the cup, touch the cup, I believe, even spend some time with Lord Stanley's cup,
And without denting it, by the way.
yes, and that is by and large the best trophy ever. But the most interesting trophy, in my opinion, is the Civil Conflict Trophy, because for a while, when the University of Connecticut and Central Florida were in the same conference, the American Athletic Association of America, I think is what it was called, the AAC, somewhere in there, the head coach of UConn, post Paul Pasqualoni, pre-Randy Edsall, two very bad tenures, but this guy took it to a different level by starting up a rivalry with Central Florida, two schools that had no rivalry whatsoever, with this huge trophy. I'll send you the photo, Rob, so you can paste it over us right here. But and nobody cared about it. No one at Central Florida had any idea what the hell this trophy was about, and it is just, they created a trophy out of absolutely no rivalry whatsoever. And that is why it is the most interesting trophy on the planet, because it served no purpose and it has disappeared. And the Civil Conflict Trophy is the most memorable trophy that I can remember.
All right, nice
Based on
job, Dave.
that
We just
description, that is the most Dave Preston trophy I've ever heard in my life.
well,
Hey.
but nice job. We just lost every listener and viewer because they're all
The
googling
Civil
now.
Conflict,
They're all
man.
googling. They're all googling civil
I
conflict.
thought we were going to paste a picture on the re-edit.
Let me tell you
We can
something.
do that in post.
I'll do that. I'll do that.
There's no way you're making that up because you brought too many facts to the story.
No
George?
way. No way. All right. I'm
I know
going to
he's
go
got
with
a pretty
couple.
active imagination, y'all.
That's
He couldn't have
true.
made that up.
So the Stanley Cup seems to be the most fun one, and you're right with the history and the names, and you could take it around town. We saw that firsthand. I think that is just awesome. Everybody gets to spend time with it. You can drink whatever you want out of it, have cereal out of it, whatever. It just seems like the fun trophy, and it's probably the heaviest too, right? I mean, not when you like
35 pounder.
What is it?
35 pounds.
There you go. Ben would know. The Claret Jug also for me, the Open Championship.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
for me. That's like the historic. I love that.
Good one.
Name goes on that too. So that those are my two. The others are, they're fine, but I'm just saying to think a little bit outside here. Stanley Cup, I'd love to walk around town and party with. Claret Jug would be just kind of the historic for me.
Question
All right,
though, can we include jacket? Can we include the green jacket? Because to me, that's a
Do whatever you want.
You can't just carry a trophy with you everywhere. I can wear the green jacket anywhere and be like,
Right.
hey.
Yeah, well, you start to
Look
wear
what
that
I
anywhere.
got.
They
The
think you
gold
wear,
jacket from the Hall of Fame. I mean, yo.
yeah, but you wear
That's
that
an all-time
anywhere.
flex at the bar.
They'll think you work for National Rental Car or Hertz unless they look closely at the inscription. So a green or gold jacket doesn't work everywhere. I get your point.
Yeah.
Ben?
Stanley Cup is the easy one here. Look, Tom
you
Brady
knew his
can
answer.
Tom Brady can throw the Super Bowl trophy, the Lombardi trophy. Trophies are best served though when they could be eaten out of, or you could drink out of them. And the Stanley Cup fits the bill. And so too, this is why I put the Lombardi trophy as number 2 on the football scale. The Grey Cup. All right, the Grey Cup, you could drink out of that. CFL champions, they drink their champagne out of that trophy. So give me the Stanley Cup, the Grey Cup, showing the roots here. But the one thing I'll say, going back to the pet peeves, we were talking cliches earlier, pet peeve, okay? In hockey, the conference champions, they get trophies, but they don't touch them because, it's not the real trophy they're going for. So they present them these trophies for winning the Eastern and Western Conference championships, and it's always a big thing. They stand back, they don't touch it. It's the biggest trophy you could win that day. They've earned it. They should be touching it. They should be celebrating it. Enough of this superstition that it's going to somehow derail their ultimate goal of winning the Stanley Cup. Oh,
They don't really do that in the NFL, though, right? Like the Hallis Trophy, and
they touch those. They celebrate, and as they
celebrate
should
with that, don't they? Yeah.
Yeah, they
Yeah,
don't
well,
give away the
that's a good
Super Bowl in late
good
January.
point.
That's in February. Late January. Celebrate when they give you a trophy.
Hey, the
Wild card
Colts-
teams, you want to spray champagne? Go ahead. Go ahead. That's the biggest thing you could win that day. One day at a time. You won the day. See, it's all
Hey.
full circle here.
You know, the Colts hung a banner
Who
for being
invited-
an AFC finalist one year. You got that going for you.
Right.
That's true.
Well, but I think the problem with the hockey is once upon a time, nobody knew who the hell Clarence Campbell was. Because wasn't it the Campbell Conference before it was
Campbell and the
Eastern?
Wales.
And it's the
Campbell and the
Clarence
Wales.
Campbell Bowl
Yeah,
and the
and-
Prince of
and-
Wales Trophy.
Well,
Ben.
weren't when the Capitals first came in existence in 1974, weren't they in the Lady Byng division or the Adams division, or they were named after? They weren't East, West, Central. If I'm not remembering, there was a Norris division. Remember that was the team that they always had the Red Wings in it. So
They were in the Patrick forever.
Patrick.
I
Okay,
remember.
there we go.
Ben, can
All
you
right.
just tell you now, what sort of time were you allowed to spend with the Stanley Cup? Can you tell us what you did with the Stanley Cup with your time that they allotted you to enjoy it?
And also
Yeah,
bear in mind, this is a family show.
Yes.
The night of the win in Las Vegas, June 7th, 2018. Those of us around the team were invited to a team reception. This is G-rated. Don't worry. It was a team reception at the hotel for family members, team employees. And the Stanley Cup was handed to me. Got to lift it above my head. Picture was taken, big smile. And then months later, fortunately, in all seriousness, with play-by-play voice John Walton, he had a day with the cup and invited a number of us to his home, and we were drinking out of it and chicken wings, and we stuck the baby in there for a picture op. It's a great celebration. Few trophies. You could have as much fun as you can with the Stanley Cup.
I was
in
at
my
that same-
look,
I
in
was
my
at that-
post-pandemic mind, I'm just thinking about how all y'all getting sick in that entire scenario right there.
Well,
Was the
Post-pandemic,
baby?
you can't do
Yeah.
any of that.
I'm
Ben,
a
was the
germaphobe, and I had no issue eating
was the
right out of
baby
that,
in
and
there?
drinking right out of that.
So what was the order? You drank out of it, then the baby, or the baby, then you drank out of it, and then the
You
wings?
drink the baby bathwater.
Oh,
It's a
God.
valid question. It's all a blur.
No.
I was at that same party. It must have gotten more interesting after I left, as most parties do, because I don't remember any of that stuff.
Yeah, don't you go to bed at like 9 o'clock?
Basic. Well, I had to get out at the time. I had to get to Channel 4. All right,
man.
we'll wrap this up. I think World Team Tennis would still be around if they had a better trophy. I mean, they must have had one. A Billie Jean King trophy. She started it. But we're gonna have to
Yeah.
do more research. I think in terms of accomplishment, the FIFA World Cup, where it truly is a world champion, and what you have to go through even to be a part of that tournament. It's years of qualifying and some big names, like, for example, this time Italy didn't make it because the competition is that tough. Somebody is going to be left out that is a country you think belongs in. So what it takes to accomplish is great. The trophy itself, it looked like they were in a hurry to get it done and get it shipped off. And now I don't think they can change it because that's the trophy. It's a small trophy by size. the accomplishment, I think, it's the greatest trophy. The greatest trophy, though, in terms of the actual physical piece of silverware, is the Stanley Cup. Any trophy that has a keeper and goes on tour, I don't see how you can compete with. But we managed to talk 15 minutes about it, so that's good to talk trophies.
Civil conflict number 2.
Yeah.
I will say real quick, part of the charm with the Stanley Cup, in all seriousness, is the tradition that dates back not that long ago, just since the mid 1990s, that every champion, player, coach, trainer, gets a day with the Stanley Cup to do whatever they may wish to do over the course of 24 hours. And that's where they get to share the trophy with friends, with family, right, maybe with the small town where their hockey career blossomed. And that experience is part of the charm of the trophy itself, the experiences that surround it, if you will.
It ruins the Hockey Hall of Fame's budget every year, because they got to ship this off to places like Cole Harbor, Nova Scotia, which is not, even from Toronto, is not a cheap flight. You can't get a direct flight there. Anyway, listen, this was a lot of fun, and we hope everyone's having a fun summer. Ben Raby, good to have you on board. George Wallace, I think his summer just started. He had to leave early. Dave Preston, Rob Woodfork. As always, we appreciate your time on the DC Sports Huddle. We're sponsored by MGM National Harbor. For the latest in Washington sports, visit MGM National Harbor and experience a sports fan's paradise.
Break.